October 14th, 1943. Altitude, 25,000 feet. Somewhere over Schweinfurt, Germany. Frost creeps across the inside of a B-17 cockpit window like a spreading spiderweb. The engines groan under the strain of thin air. Every breath tastes like metal. And ahead, just visible through the haze of contrails, are the flashes of flak bursts blooming like black flowers against a white sky. Captain James Red Thorn tightens his grip on the B-17's control column. His bomber is part of the second Schweinfurt raid, a mission that will later be known by another name: Black Thursday. You can almost feel the cold vibration through the steel frame as he leans forward, scanning the horizon. But he isn't looking for targets. He's looking for something else. Something he desperately needs. Fighters. Escort fighters. He sees none. The P-47 Thunderbolts that escorted them from England already turned back. They had to. Their fuel gauges demanded it. They simply could not fly deep into Germany and come back. And now, in the most dangerous airspace in Europe, the bombers are alone. B-17 gunners shift in their turrets, thick gloves clumsy on the triggers. Breath fogs their oxygen masks. The bomber stream stretches across the sky like a fragile metallic ribbon. Dozens of flying fortresses, every one of them exposed. Then comes the sound. A faint rumble at first, like distant thunder sliding across the cold upper atmosphere. Then, growing louder, the roar of DB-605 engines. The Luftwaffe is coming, and they know the bombers are unprotected. The Luftwaffe strikes. From the edge of a cloud bank emerges a formation of Bf-109s and FW-190s, sunlight flickering across their wings. Their yellow-nosed fighters glint like knives. They form up in disciplined lines, dive slightly, and begin their attack run. Radio chatter explodes across the bomber network. "Bandits! Bandits 12 o'clock! They're coming in fast! All ships! Brace!" But the bombers cannot maneuver. They must hold the formation. They must fly straight, which means the German fighters can line up for perfect shots. The first burst of cannon fire tears through a B-17 on the left flank. One engine erupts. A wing buckles. The bomber spirals downward in slow, awful motion. White parachutes drift from the wreckage, some open, some not. Captain Thorn clenches his jaw. He knows what's happening. He's seen it before. The Luftwaffe pilots don't fear bombers. They fear American fighters. And today, there are none. "We're hanging out here like bait," his co-pilot mutters. He's not wrong. Another group of Bf-10-9s slice through the second wave of bombers, firing in synchronized bursts. Machine guns and 20mm cannons hammer the formations. The sky fills with debris, metal chunks, pieces of wing, shards of plexiglass spinning through the air like broken ice. Inside Thorn's bomber, the right waist gunner screams into the intercom, "Where the hell are our fighters? Where are they?" There is no answer. There are no fighters. Because America, the most industrialized nation in the world, the country capable of building Liberty ships every 4 days and producing tanks by the thousands, could not yet build a fighter that could fly from England to the heart of Germany and back. That limitation was killing men every day. The escort problem, no one could solve. From the first missions in 1942, American commanders realized the brutal truth. Without long-range escort fighters, daylight bombing was suicide. The B-17 Flying Fortress was a masterpiece of design, durable, heavily armed, able to fly on damaged engines. But no bomber, no matter how strong, could survive wave after wave of coordinated fighter attacks. Without support, US commanders believed formations of bombers could defend themselves. The Luftwaffe proved them wrong. The escort aircraft available in 1943, the P-47 Thunderbolt and the P-38 Lightning, were fast, tough, and deadly. But they were limited by one thing: fuel. They could protect bombers part of the way into France or the Low Countries, but not to Leipzig, not to Regensburg, not to Schweinfurt, not to Berlin. Every mile deeper into Germany meant fewer American fighters. And when the escorts finally turned for home, every Luftwaffe squadron within range would be waiting to tear into the helpless bombers. German pilots even had a phrase for this moment. The American fighters have gone to eat their sandwiches. Black Thursday, a disaster. Waiting to happen. The mission Thorn is flying will become legendary for its casualties. Of the 291 B-17s sent to Schweinfurt that day, 60 will be shot down. More than 600 airmen will be killed, captured, or gravely wounded, and the Luftwaffe will barely suffer losses by comparison. American planners stare at the mission reports in silence. No one says it out loud, but everyone knows the truth. If something doesn't change, the daylight bombing campaign will collapse. Factories won't be destroyed. The Luftwaffe will grow stronger. Germany will gain time, and the invasion of Europe could be delayed or become impossible. The United States needed a miracle, or more accurately, they needed a fighter that didn't exist yet. The P-51 arrives, but it's not enough. Across the ocean, in an airfield in England, test pilots evaluate a sleek new plane, the P-51 Mustang. It's fast, it's agile, it climbs like a rocket, and at medium altitudes, it can outrun nearly anything the Luftwaffe fields. Its aerodynamic design, credited to North American aviation engineers Edgar Schmude, Raymond Rice, and a brilliant aerodynamicist named Kindleberger, gives it extraordinary performance. But it has the same fatal flaw: range. In its early configuration, the Mustang can escort bombers partway, maybe into Belgium, maybe a little farther, but not deep into Germany, and not home again. The breakthrough America needed still wasn't there. Not yet. The search for an answer. Meetings grow tense inside the 8th Air Force command rooms. Maps show the limits of escort coverage in red arcs. Each arc ends far short of the critical industrial heartland of Germany, places like Regensburg, Schweinfurt, Munich, and Berlin. Commanders debate options: more bombers, more armor, new formations, flying at night. But every solution is a bandage on a bullet wound. What they need is simple to say, but nearly impossible to engineer. A fighter that could stay with the bombers all the way, from takeoff in England to the target deep inside Germany and back across the Channel. To do that, it needs much more fuel than any existing fighter could carry. And this is where the story turns. Because inside a small workshop, far from the front lines, a group of little-known engineers begins tinkering with an idea most high-ranking officers dismissed: drop tanks. Long-range, external, aerodynamic fuel tanks built cheaply, deployed easily, and discarded mid-flight. But while everyone talked about drop tanks, almost no one could get them to work the way escort missions demanded. They caused drag. They destabilized fighters. They sometimes refused to detach. They could leak. They could freeze. They could even explode. So the concept stayed stuck on drawing boards. Until a man named George Pete McCoy picked up the problem no one else wanted and refused to put it down. The man who would change the war. Pete McCoy was not a famous engineer, not a general, not a political figure, not the head of some prestigious research laboratory. He was simply persistent. A quiet, stubborn, detail-obsessed aviation tinkerer working with a small team in a modest workshop. His colleagues later described him as a man with an engineer's mind and a mechanic's hands. He believed a fighter could fly to Berlin. He believed a fighter could escort bombers home. He believed drop tanks were the key. While others dismissed them as unreliable, McCoy spent night after night testing, redesigning, sanding wooden mock-ups, adjusting valves, experimenting with materials, and studying aerodynamic shapes. The military wanted metal tanks. He wanted cheap, disposable paper tanks. The brass laughed. He built them anyway, and every test brought him closer. The turning point begins. It is January 1944. A cold wind sweeps across the flight line of the 354 fighter group in England. Ground crews move between Mustangs, refueling them, checking ammunition belts, tightening bolts in the freezing air. And under the wings of several P-51s sits something new slim, aerodynamic cylinders, freshly painted, strapped tight with experimental fittings. The pilots glance at them with skepticism. Paper tanks? One laughs. That thing going to hold fuel or confetti? But orders are orders. And McCoy stands beside the flight line, watching, waiting, praying that months of calculations, tests, and sleepless nights don't end in disaster. The mission launches. The bombers form up. The fighters escort them. Miles pass. Hours pass. And for the first time, the Mustangs do not turn back. They keep going. And going. And going. Across the French coast. Across the Rhine. Across the industrial heart of the Third Reich. German pilots see something they have never seen before. American fighters over central Germany. The era of unprotected bombers is ending, and the Luftwaffe has no idea how much everything is about